When you think of famous pastors, flashy suits, big churches, and luxury cars probably come to mind, but not all spiritual leaders are chasing the spotlight or the money. Some black pastors quietly live like they have nothing, even while leading thousands. Whether it's driving an old car, living in modest homes, or giving most of their earnings back to the community, here are 15 black pastors who live like they are poor. 1. Pastor Wellington Boone.
We ask ourselves, do we think like he thinks? Do we talk like he talks? Do we do what he does?
Wellington Boone walks into rooms without fanfare, no entourage, no designer suits that cost more than a car payment. Just a man with a Bible and a message about getting back to basics. For decades, this evangelical leader has been writing and preaching about something that sounds almost radical in today's church world. While megachurch pastors post photos of private jets and luxury watches on social media, Boone has spent his ministry pushing back against that entire mindset. His books and teachings focus on servant leadership, the idea that being called to lead actually means being called to serve. Not exactly the prosperity gospel message that fills stadiums. Boone grew up understanding what it meant to go without. That experience shaped everything that came after. When he started in ministry, he made a choice that would define his entire approach. He would live simply and teach others to do the same. His writing often challenges Christians to examine their relationship with money and status. He asks uncomfortable questions about whether the American church has gotten too comfortable, too focused on buildings and budgets instead of people and purpose. His home isn't featured in architectural magazines. He doesn't drive cars that turn heads. When he travels for speaking engagements, he's not demanding 5-star accommodations. Boone's lifestyle matches his message, and that consistency has earned him respect even from people who don't agree with all his theology. He lives in a regular neighborhood, shops at regular stores, and somehow manages to lead a significant ministry without needing to prove anything through material possessions. 2. Reverend Rose Hudson Wilkin.
Young people, people from a minority ethnic background.
Rose Hudson Wilkin knows what it's like to be poor, really poor. Growing up in Jamaica, she experienced the kind of poverty that shapes your entire worldview. When she moved to England and eventually became Bishop of Dover in the Church of England, she didn't forget where she came from. She couldn't forget even if she wanted to. Those early years are written into her DNA. As a bishop, Hudson Wilkin could live in the fancy residence, wear the expensive robes at every opportunity, and enjoy the prestige that comes with the position. Instead, she's known for showing up in her community, doing parish activism, and standing with people who are struggling. Her public work focuses on advocacy for those without power rather than collecting the trappings of church hierarchy. She speaks openly about her background, about knowing hunger, about understanding what it means when parents can't afford school uniforms for their kids. This isn't theoretical for her. When she talks about poverty, she's talking about her own story. That authenticity comes through in everything she does.
The Spirit of God is upon me, and when the Spirit of God is upon me, He chooses people to...
William Barber II has a voice that can fill a room, a cathedral, or a protest march. But if you're looking for him to fill his garage with luxury cars or his closet with custom suits, you're looking at the wrong pastor. Barber co-leads the Poor People's Campaign, and he's not doing it from a penthouse office. He talks about economic justice, health care access, and voting rights. He organizes protests and marches. He gets arrested at demonstrations. That's not exactly the profile of someone who's focused on accumulating wealth. Barber's preaching style is powerful and passionate, but his lifestyle is surprisingly simple. He lives modestly, dresses plainly most of the time, and spends his energy on organizing rather than acquiring. When he travels for speaking engagements or campaign events, the focus is always on the message and the movement, never on his personal comfort or status. His work with the Poor People's Campaign means he's constantly in contact with people who are struggling to survive. He meets with workers fighting for living wages, families facing eviction, and communities without clean water. You can't do that work authentically while living in a mansion and posting vacation photos from exotic locations. Barber seems to understand that his credibility depends on his willingness to live in a way that reflects his values. 4. Reverend Michael Bruce Curry. Michael Bruce Curry became internationally famous after he preached at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding. Millions of people watched him talk about the power of love in that grand setting at Windsor Castle. But the man who went back home after that royal wedding isn't living like royalty himself. As a bishop in the Episcopal Church, Curry has access to nice things. The position comes with certain comforts, but people who know him describe someone much more interested in the gospel message than in personal spectacle. He talks about servant leadership constantly. It's not just a talking point for him, it's a framework for how he understands ministry. Curry's public ministry emphasizes simplicity and service. He writes books and gives speeches, yes, but the content is always about redirecting attention away from church hierarchy and toward Jesus' teachings about serving others. He has worked in large church contexts, but he hasn't let those settings change his fundamental approach to living. Friends and colleagues describe him as down-to-earth and approachable. He's known for remembering people's names, asking about their families, and treating everyone with the same warmth regardless of their position. His home is comfortable but not ostentatious. His car works fine but won't appear in any luxury vehicle commercials. He seems genuinely uninterested in the kind of lifestyle that many high-profile church leaders pursue. 5. Reverend Eugene Rivers. Eugene Rivers has spent decades in Boston's inner city doing the kind of ministry that doesn't make you rich. He founded the Azusa Christian Community and has been profiled repeatedly for his grassroots work in neighborhoods that many churches abandoned long ago. Rivers could have taken his talents and his degrees to a comfortable suburban megachurch. He could have built a television ministry or written best-selling books about prosperity. Instead, he stayed in the city, working with young people caught up in gang violence, families struggling with addiction, and communities devastated by disinvestment. His community development work is hands-on and often exhausting. It means late-night phone calls, emergency situations, and constant fundraising just to keep programs running. It means living in the same neighborhood as the people he serves, sending his kids to the same schools, and shopping at the same stores. Rivers chose proximity over comfort. The activism work that defines Rivers' ministry doesn't pay well. Community organizing rarely does. But he is stuck with it for decades because the work matters more to him than his bank balance. 6. Pastor Otis Moss III. Otis Moss III serves as senior pastor at Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago, a large and historically significant congregation. But if you're expecting the kind of flashy pastoral style that often comes with big church ministry, you'd be surprised by Moss's approach. He's a public theologian who writes and speaks on national platforms, but his ministry style is marked by pastoral focus and community engagement rather than personal promotion. Moss comes from a family of pastors. His father, Otis Moss Jr., was also a respected minister, and he seems to have inherited a commitment to substance over style. Trinity United has a complicated history and high public profile, but Moss has worked to keep the focus on ministry rather than spectacle. His preaching is thoughtful and challenging. His public presence is relatively understated compared to many pastors leading churches that size. He talks about social justice, racial reconciliation, and community care without making himself the center of the story. People who know Moss describe him as serious about theology and pastoral care. He reads widely, thinks deeply, and tries to lead with integrity. His personal life doesn't generate tabloid headlines or social media drama. He lives in the city, engages with the neighborhood, and approaches ministry as a calling rather than a career ladder to climb. 7. Pastor Enoch Adeboye. Enoch Adeboye leads the Redeemed Christian Church of God, a massive international ministry with parishes all over the world. The scale of the organization is enormous. But people who meet Adeboye often describe him as surprisingly humble and unassuming, especially given the size of his platform. Born into poverty in Nigeria, Adeboye was a university mathematics professor before entering full-time ministry. That academic background seems to have given him a certain discipline and focus that carries through to how he lives. Despite leading a church with millions of members, he's described as living relatively simply and focusing on mission work rather than personal display. Stories about Adeboye often emphasize his work ethic and his commitment to prayer and fasting. He's known for spending hours in prayer, for maintaining discipline in his personal life, and for emphasizing holiness and dedication in his teaching. These aren't the characteristics you usually associate with pastors who are primarily focused on wealth accumulation. The church he leads does have resources. When you have that many members contributing, the organization has significant financial capacity. But Adeboye's personal lifestyle, according to those who know him, doesn't reflect someone trying to maximize personal luxury. He travels extensively for ministry, but the focus is on church planting and evangelism rather than vacation destinations. His teaching emphasizes sacrifice, dedication, and spiritual growth. He talks about prayer and fasting more than he talks about prosperity. His example seems to suggest that you can lead a large, influential ministry without needing to live like a celebrity or accumulate wealth for its own sake. 8. Reverend John M. Perkins. John Perkins's life story reads like something out of a history book. Born into sharecropping poverty in Mississippi in 1930, he grew up understanding racism and economic oppression from lived experience. After his brother was killed by a white marshal, Perkins left Mississippi, found success in California, and then made a choice that defined everything that followed. He went back. Returning to Mississippi in the civil rights era wasn't a career move. It was a calling. Perkins founded Voice of Calvary Ministries and spent decades doing community development work in one of the poorest parts of the country. He was beaten nearly to death by police in 1970 for his civil rights work. He could have left again. He stayed. Perkins developed what he calls the 3 R's of community development: relocation, reconciliation, and redistribution. The first one, relocation, means living among the people you serve. He didn't just preach this principle, he lived it. He moved his family into poor communities. He sent his kids to struggling schools. He shared the same challenges and risks as his neighbors. Now in his 90s, Perkins has spent his entire adult life modeling what it means to live simply and serve others. He wrote books, founded organizations, and influenced a generation of community development workers. But he never got rich doing it. His lifestyle has always reflected someone more concerned with justice than with comfort, more focused on his neighbors than on his net worth. His example has inspired countless people to do similar work, to move into struggling communities, to start nonprofits focused on genuine development, to measure success by community transformation rather than personal accumulation. Perkins proved that a life of ministry doesn't have to lead to prosperity, and that choosing to serve the poor can be its own reward. 9. Reverend Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton is a complicated figure in American public life. He's been a controversial activist, a presidential candidate, a talk show host, and always, consistently, a Baptist minister. His public ministry has centered on civil rights, social justice, and political organizing for decades. Sharpton's early career included some flashier elements: the tracksuits, the medallions, the big hair. But over the years, his personal style has become simpler and his focus sharper. He lost weight, simplified his wardrobe, and continued the work that has defined his ministry, showing up when communities face injustice. His National Action Network operates in donations and grassroots support. Sharpton travels constantly, often to places where Black people have been killed by police or discriminated against by institutions. He organizes protests, gives eulogies, and pushes for accountability. This isn't work that makes you wealthy. It's work that keeps you on the road, eating fast food and staying in whatever accommodations are available. Sharpton's apartment in Harlem is modest. His lifestyle, especially in recent years, reflects someone focused on the work rather than on accumulating possessions. He's been transparent about past tax issues and financial struggles, which suggests someone who hasn't been stockpiling wealth, even while maintaining a national profile. His ministry is activist-focused. He measures success by policy changes, by prosecutions of police officers who abuse their power, by voting rights protected and expanded. Those aren't the metrics of someone building a prosperity gospel empire. Sharpton's role is more organizer than traditional pastor, but his Baptist minister identity shapes everything he does, and his lifestyle reflects priorities that don't center on personal enrichment. 10. Reverend Raphael Warnock. Raphael Warnock serves as senior pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, the church where Martin Luther King Jr. preached, and also serves as a United States Senator. That combination of roles gives him a platform and visibility that most pastors never experience. But his message and his lifestyle both emphasize solidarity with working families and the poor. Warnock grew up in public housing in Savannah, Georgia, one of 12 children. His parents were pastors who worked other jobs to make ends meet. His mother picked tobacco and cotton. That background is central to how Warnock understands ministry and public service. He talks about it constantly, not as a politician trying to seem relatable, but as a pastor remembering where he comes from. At Ebenezer Baptist, Warnock built a reputation for pastoral care and community engagement. The church runs programs for housing assistance, job training, and youth development. Warnock's preaching emphasizes justice and service. His political work in the Senate focuses on healthcare access, voting rights, and economic opportunity for working people. His personal life has been under intense scrutiny because of his political role, and nothing in that scrutiny suggests someone living extravagantly. He lives in Atlanta, drives himself around, and maintains a lifestyle that seems aligned with his pastoral identity. His speeches and sermons consistently return to themes of service and solidarity with people who are struggling. Warnock could easily leverage his position into all kinds of lucrative opportunities. High-profile pastors get book deals, speaking fees, and board positions that pay well. But his choices seem guided by a pastoral calling that predates and outlasts his political career. He presents himself as a pastor who happens to serve in the Senate, not a politician who happens to have a church. That distinction matters, and it shapes how he lives. 11. Reverend Benjamin Elijah Mays. Do you remember learning about the man who shaped Martin Luther King Jr.'s thinking? Benjamin Elijah Mays was that person, a Baptist minister and educator who served as president of Morehouse College for 27 years. But here's what makes his story different from today's celebrity pastors. Mays could have cashed in on his influence and reputation. He never did. Mays grew up in South Carolina in the 1890s, the son of formerly enslaved parents who were sharecroppers. He picked cotton as a child. He knew poverty intimately, the kind that stays with you forever. When he eventually earned multiple degrees and became one of the most respected black educators in America, he didn't use that position to accumulate wealth. He used it to serve. As Morehouse president, Mays lived on campus in the president's house. Nice, but nothing extravagant. He could have leveraged his reputation into lucrative speaking tours or consulting gigs that paid big money. Instead, he spent his time mentoring students, many of whom couldn't afford tuition. He worked to keep the college running during difficult financial times, often worrying more about the school's budget than his own bank account. Mays wore simple suits. He ate in the college dining hall with students. His car was functional, not flashy. When he traveled for speaking engagements, he stayed with friends or in modest accommodations. His lifestyle reflected someone who believed that education and service were the point, not personal enrichment. People who knew Mays described him as dignified but never pretentious. He had gravitas and presence, but he wasn't trying to impress anyone with material possessions. His wife, Sadie, lived the same way, involved in community work, focused on helping others, never concerned with keeping up appearances or competing with other faculty wives over houses or clothes. The civil rights movement benefited enormously from Mays's leadership and moral authority, but he didn't capitalize on that involvement for personal gain. He marched, he spoke, he organized, and he went back to his work at Morehouse. When he finally retired, he didn't move to some luxury retirement community. He stayed engaged in ministry and education until his death in 1984, living simply and serving consistently right to the end. 12. Pastor Joseph Lowery. If you were born before 1990, you probably know about Joseph Lowery's work in civil rights. This United Methodist minister co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Martin Luther King Jr. and spent decades fighting for justice. But while some civil rights leaders eventually moved into comfortable retirement, Lowery kept showing up and living simply. Lowery was known for his humor, his singing, and his unwavering commitment to poor people. He pastored churches, but he also spent enormous amounts of time organizing, protesting, and advocating for economic justice. That kind of work doesn't make you wealthy. It keeps you busy, tired, and often frustrated, but not rich. His home in Atlanta was comfortable but modest. No gates, no security detail, no mansion on a hill, just a regular house in a regular neighborhood where he lived with his wife Evelyn, who was just as committed to activism as he was. They worked as a team, often hosting meetings and planning sessions in their home, feeding activists and organizers who were passing through town. Lowery's wardrobe was simple. He wore suits when necessary, but he was just as likely to show up in casual clothes, ready to march or protest. He got arrested multiple times over the years for civil disobedience, which meant spending nights in jail cells rather than luxury hotels. That was fine with him. The cause mattered more than his comfort. Even as he got older, Lowery maintained his commitment to activism and simple living. He gave the benediction at President Obama's inauguration in 2009, and even in that moment of national spotlight, he used the opportunity to talk about justice rather than to promote himself. He went home afterward and continued his work, still living in the same modest way he always had. Lowery died in 2020 at age 98, still advocating for justice until near the end. His long life was marked by consistency. He believed ministry meant service, and he lived that belief without compromise. No prosperity gospel, no fundraising schemes, no luxury lifestyle. Just decades of showing up for people who needed someone to stand with them. 13. Pastor Samuel DeWitt. Proctor. If you lived in Harlem in the 1970s, you knew about Samuel DeWitt Proctor. This pastor-educator served at Abyssinian Baptist Church, one of the most prominent black churches in America. But Proctor split his time between the church and university work, and neither role made him wealthy. He could have used those credentials to build a personal empire. Instead, he kept teaching, preaching, and mentoring young people. His priority was always mission over material show. At Abyssinian, Proctor preached powerful sermons about justice and community, but he lived simply. His lifestyle reflected someone who saw ministry as a calling rather than a career path to wealth. He didn't drive luxury cars or wear expensive watches. He invested his time in students and church members, in writing and teaching, in trying to make a difference rather than make a fortune. Proctor wrote several books, but they were about theology, ethics, and social justice, not get-rich-quick schemes or prosperity theology. His writing emphasized character, service, and moral leadership. His home was comfortable enough for a professor and pastor, but nothing extravagant. He and his wife lived in a way that allowed them to be generous with others. They hosted students, supported young ministers, and gave their time freely to people who needed guidance or help. Proctor understood that tying church work to university service meant accepting modest pay in both contexts. Academic positions at black colleges didn't make you rich. Pastoral ministry, done with integrity, shouldn't either. He seemed fine with that arrangement. His life suggested that some things, like shaping young minds and serving a congregation faithfully, were worth more than a big bank account. 14. Reverend Howard Thurman. Do you remember reading Jesus and the Disinherited? That book, written by Howard Thurman, influenced the civil rights movement and continues to challenge readers today. Thurman was a theologian and pastor whose spiritual depth was legendary, but his lifestyle was remarkably simple. Thurman co-founded the first major interracial church in the United States, the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples in San Francisco. This was radical work in the 1940s, and it wasn't profitable. Interracial ministry in that era meant constant challenges, limited funding, and plenty of opposition. Thurman did it anyway because he believed in it. His writing emphasized inner spiritual life and community connection rather than material success. He talked about meditation, about finding God in silence, about connecting across racial and religious lines. These weren't topics that would lead to a prosperity gospel empire. They were ideas that required depth, reflection, and commitment to values beyond wealth. Thurman later served as Dean of Chapel at Boston University, another position that carried prestige but not big money. He lived simply, dressed plainly, and focused on his teaching and writing. His home was filled with books rather than luxury goods. He traveled for speaking engagements, but the travel was about spreading ideas, not accumulating frequent flyer miles to exotic vacation destinations. People who knew Thurman described his presence as almost mystical, deeply spiritual, thoughtful, and focused. He wasn't trying to impress anyone or build a brand. He was trying to understand God and help others do the same. That kind of ministry doesn't usually come with a big paycheck, and Thurman didn't seem to expect one. 15. Pastor Gardner Calvin Taylor. Those who lived in Brooklyn from the 1940s through the 1990s probably heard about Gardner Calvin Taylor. Called the Dean of American Preaching, Taylor served as pastor of Concord Baptist Church for 42 years. His preaching was legendary, powerful, eloquent, moving. But his lifestyle was grounded in local church service rather than celebrity culture. Taylor could preach. People came from all over to hear him. His sermons were masterclasses in biblical exposition, storytelling, and prophetic challenge. He had the kind of talent that could have translated into television ministry, stadium events, and significant wealth. He chose differently. He stayed at Concord Baptist Church, serving the same congregation for decades. He married people, buried people, baptized their children, and walked with families through joy and crisis. That's local church ministry, the kind that requires presence and commitment rather than spotlight and spectacle. Taylor's home in Brooklyn was nice, but not ostentatious. He lived in the community he served. His clothes were professional and dignified, but he wasn't showing up in custom designer suits. His car got him where he needed to go without making a statement. His focus was on his sermon preparation, his pastoral care, and his engagement with the moral issues of his time. He was involved in civil rights work and denominational leadership, but he always came back to his congregation. That commitment to one church, to one community, over 4 decades showed a different set of priorities than what we often see today. Taylor could have moved to larger platforms or more lucrative opportunities. He stayed put and kept preaching. When Taylor finally retired and eventually passed away in 2015 at age 96, his legacy was his preaching and his faithful pastoral ministry. He didn't leave behind a media empire or a fortune. He left behind thousands of people whose lives he'd touched through consistent, committed, local church service. His moral authority came from that faithfulness, not from wealth or fame. Did your favorite pastor make it to the list, or did we miss someone you admire? These gospel legends sang about holiness, but secretly lived a double life. From secret affairs, surprise pregnancies, to hotel room scandals that shocked entire congregations. Here are the 10 shocking cheating scandals in gospel music history. Let's start with the gospel star who shocked the world just by telling the truth. Anthony Charles Williams II, better known as Tonex in his early career, was once hailed as the Prince of Gospel. He had it all: an incredible vocal range, genre-blending music, Grammy nominations, and millions of fans in the gospel world. But behind the spotlight, things were not as clean as they seemed. While he was performing on stage in churches and Christian events, wearing suits and singing about salvation, Tonex was quietly dealing with internal conflict, especially about his identity and personal life. Now here's where it starts getting controversial. Around the early 2000s, rumors began circulating in the gospel industry that Tonex was not living according to the conservative Christian lifestyle he preached about. Some insiders whispered about secret relationships, both emotional and physical, that were kept out of public view. There was no direct proof of cheating, but the way people spoke about him made it sound like he was living a double life. Some speculated that he was involved in multiple affairs. Others claimed he had relationships with men while being presented as a traditional gospel figure. Was this gossip, or was something deeper going on? Everything changed from 2007 to 2009 when Tonex publicly came out as gay. This was huge. Why? Because the gospel music industry, deeply rooted in conservative Christian values, had never seen something like this before. Tonex said he could no longer live in fear or silence. He said he had always been gay, but was forced to suppress it to fit in. And just like that, fans turned on him. Churches stopped booking him. Christian radio pulled his songs. Pastors preached against him. To make things worse, many began to retroactively connect his sexuality to those earlier rumors of affairs and cheating. Even though there was no real evidence, people assumed the worst. Some claimed he had been dishonest to his fans and partners, living a life of secrecy and betrayal. But here's the truth: Tonex never admitted to cheating on anyone. What he did admit was that he was hiding his true self, because the church would have never accepted him otherwise. After coming out, Tonex reinvented himself as B. Slade. He shifted away from gospel music and embraced a more secular, edgy, and experimental style. But by then, the damage to his gospel career was done. He lost most of his religious fan base. Even today, some churches won't mention his name. But he also gained something: freedom. He started speaking openly about mental health, identity struggles, and the hypocrisy in religious spaces that demand perfection while offering no compassion. That was wild. But wait till you hear who got exposed by their own Facebook confession. James Fortune isn't just any gospel singer. He's a multi-time Stellar Award winner, a Grammy nominee, and the voice behind popular worship songs like I Trust You and Let Your Power Fall. He built an image of a faithful husband, a loving father, and a spiritual leader. He even co-hosted a gospel radio show that reached thousands every day. But all of that started falling apart in 2014. In October 2014, James Fortune was arrested in Fort Bend County, Texas, for aggravated assault of a family member. That family member? His wife, Cheryl Fortune. According to police reports, Cheryl had visible injuries, bruising, swelling, and scratches, allegedly caused by James during an argument. Even though Fortune later said it was a misunderstanding, the arrest record and photographs told a very different story. This wasn't his first time facing accusations either. Back in 2003, he was also involved in a civil case where he pleaded guilty to injury to a child after his 4-year-old stepson was burned in a scalding bath. Yes, this case was real and documented. He was ordered to 6 years probation and to attend therapy. But in 2014, things got worse. When Cheryl finally came forward, she didn't just talk about one argument. She described years of emotional, mental, and physical abuse. She said she'd been silent for too long, and now she was done. In interviews and public statements, she also hinted at infidelity, saying the abuse was part of a toxic environment fueled by control issues and betrayal. While no proof of cheating ever came out officially, the trust in their marriage was clearly broken. And in the court of public opinion, James Fortune's image crumbled. In the middle of all this, James Fortune issued a public apology on social media. He said he was truly sorry and that he was going to rehab for anger management. He stepped back from the public eye for a while. Eventually, he tried to return to music with songs about redemption and healing. One of his later albums was even titled Dear Future Me, aimed at showing growth. But the damage to his legacy was already done. Many saw this not as a moment of repentance, but a calculated comeback. But the next artist's scandal involves a baby before the divorce was even final. Born in Detroit, Dietrich grew up as a preacher's kid, formed the group Voices of Unity, and churned out crossover hits like Well Done. He married gospel singer Demita in 1998. Together they toured churches worldwide, branding themselves as a power couple for Christ. By 2010, the Haddons were hosting mega concerts and preaching about marital purity from the stage. Everything looked perfect until cracks began to show. In late 2011, Dietrich abruptly left home 2 days after Demita buried her mother, according to Demita's later interview. By January 2013, he went public on Facebook, accusing fellow gospel star Isaac Carey of having an affair with Demita. Carey denied it. Demita called the post a blame game. Either way, the marriage was over. Fans now had two competing narratives. Did Demita cheat, or was Dietrich projecting to hide his own secret? While that social media drama raged, news leaked that Dietrich's new girlfriend, Dominique McTire, was already pregnant. Demita says she discovered the pregnancy in December 2011, months before any divorce papers were filed. Haddon insists the relationship began after he and Demita had separated, but court records show the divorce wasn't final until summer 2012. Their daughter, Destin, arrived the same year. In July 2013, Haddon married Dominique in a small California ceremony, then signed on to Oxygen's Preachers of L.A. Cameras rolled as he justified the baby before marriage timeline. Yes, I missed the mark, but God gives second chances. Critics blasted the optics, preaching holiness on Sunday, courting controversy on Monday. Yet the show's ratings soared, proving that scandal sells even in church circles. The gospel community split. Some pastors canceled his bookings. Others applauded his transparency. Online, he was labeled everything from fallen preacher to real-life prodigal. Haddon doubled down, releasing albums themed around grace and another chance, while Dominique defended him in interviews and blasted Demita for only telling half the story. The couple soon welcomed a second baby, turning their narrative into one of redemption, at least to supporters. From pastor to reality TV, that's nothing. Our next gospel icon got caught cheating and vacationing with a celebrity weeks later. Israel Houghton was once seen as the golden voice of modern gospel music. As the lead singer of Israel and New Breed, he wasn't just performing worship songs, he was shaping the sound of church culture itself. With 6 Grammy Awards, a leadership role at Joel Osteen's massive Lakewood Church, and a spotless public image, he seemed to embody what a Christian artist should be. But then, in early 2016, that perfect image began to fall apart. In February of that year, Israel Houghton posted a lengthy and emotional confession on his Facebook page. In it, he admitted to having committed adultery during his 20-year marriage to Melissa Houghton. He explained that the couple had been separated for quite some time and that their divorce had been finalized. This wasn't just a private matter anymore. It was a full-blown scandal. He wasn't just a worship leader. He was a spiritual figurehead. And now he was admitting to what many in the Christian community considered a moral failure. Fans were shocked. Churches were stunned. And Lakewood Church responded immediately by placing him on indefinite leave from all ministry responsibilities. But things escalated even further. Just weeks after his public confession, paparazzi photos surfaced of Israel vacationing in Tulum, Mexico, with television personality Adrienne Bailon. The photos, showing the two laughing, holding hands, and enjoying the beach, spread like wildfire across social media and gossip blogs. People immediately started asking questions. Was Adrienne the woman he cheated with? Was their relationship the reason for the divorce? Houghton and Bailon both denied this. According to them, their relationship started after Israel had already separated from his wife. But in the world of public opinion, perception often becomes reality. The fact that the timeline between his divorce and new relationship was so close only fueled suspicion and anger. As the backlash intensified, Houghton tried to take control of the narrative. He reiterated that he had already repented, gone through counseling, and made peace with God. Adrienne Bailon also stepped in, saying in interviews that she would never have dated a married man, and that she made sure everything was clear before entering into the relationship. Despite their explanations, the damage had been done. Houghton's reputation in the gospel community was severely wounded. He lost fans. Churches distanced themselves, and for a while, his once flourishing music career seemed uncertain. Still, Israel and Adrienne moved forward. In August 2016, he proposed to her in Paris. By November of the same year, they were married in a lavish ceremony at the Hotel Plaza Athénée, also in Paris. The event was covered by People magazine and celebrated with glittering photos, showing the couple smiling and dancing under chandeliers. To some, it looked like a fairy tale ending, but to others, it felt like a betrayal of everything they believed gospel music stood for. Cheating, a beach trip, and a public suspension. But what if I told you the next scandal includes close friends and a loaded gun? Tina Campbell, one half of the gospel duo Mary Mary, was known for her powerhouse vocals and bold personality. Alongside her sister Erica, she helped revolutionize gospel music by blending it with R&B and hip-hop influences, bringing faith-based music into mainstream spaces. But behind her chart-topping success, Tina's personal life was falling apart in a way no fan expected. In 2014, she revealed that her husband, drummer and musician Teddy Campbell, had been unfaithful to her. Not just once, but with multiple women. What made the betrayal even worse was the shocking detail that some of these women were her close friends. In a painfully honest confession shared on their reality show, Mary Mary, and in multiple interviews, Tina didn't hold back. She described how discovering Teddy's affairs shattered her mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. According to Tina, she initially believed the cheating had been limited to a single affair. But when she confronted Teddy, he broke down and admitted there had been multiple women over multiple years. The news crushed her. What followed next could easily have been the end of their marriage. Tina went into a spiral. On her reality show and in later interviews, she openly admitted that she had thoughts of violent revenge. She said she once picked up a gun and was ready to end it all, referring to herself, her husband, and his mistress. These were not lines written for TV drama. This was real pain, captured in real time. It was raw, uncomfortable, and honest. For someone who had spent years preaching about love, marriage, and Christian values, Tina now found herself battling hatred, rage, and despair. But here's where the story takes a turn most people didn't expect. Instead of filing for divorce, Tina decided to fight for her marriage. Not with denial, not with blind forgiveness, but through a long, painful process of healing. She made it clear that she didn't stay out of obligation or for image, but because she believed in restoration. The couple went through intense counseling. Tina turned to her faith in a way that wasn't just performative. That was intense. But the next one might be even more personal. Because now we're talking about explicit content and rumors of emotional affairs. Kirk Franklin is one of the most recognized names in gospel music. He changed the genre forever by mixing hip-hop, R&B, and contemporary sounds with messages of faith and hope. He's won Grammys, sold millions of albums, and even crossed over into the mainstream without compromising his message. But behind the music, there was a deeply personal struggle that almost destroyed everything he had built, including his marriage. And it wasn't drugs or money or fame. It was explicit content addiction, a topic that made headlines not just for what he admitted, but for what people started to speculate afterward. In the early 2000s, Kirk Franklin shocked the Christian community when he openly confessed that he had been addicted to explicit content for years. He didn't hide it behind vague words like temptation or struggle. He called it what it was, an addiction. And he said it had started when he was just 8 years old. As he grew up, even while creating gospel hits, he was secretly battling this part of himself. According to Kirk, it became so severe that it began to affect his behavior, his emotions, and even his relationship with his wife, Tammy. Kirk Franklin didn't just make this confession in a church sermon or a blog post. He went on the Oprah Winfrey Show and talked about it on national television. That move stunned both fans and critics. On the one hand, it was courageous. On the other, it raised a lot of uncomfortable questions. If Kirk was addicted for that long, what else was he hiding? Had he ever crossed the line from explicit content into actual infidelity? Was he living a double life during the peak of his fame? Officially, Kirk never admitted to cheating on his wife. In fact, he and Tammy have said repeatedly that although their marriage was under pressure, they stayed loyal to one another. Tammy has publicly supported him through the process and has even spoken about how the addiction made her feel unwanted, insecure, and at times, angry. But while the couple insisted on their faithfulness, gossip blogs and magazines weren't so sure. Around 2007 to 2009, there were widespread rumors that Kirk may have had emotional affairs or inappropriate encounters, especially while touring or working with other artists. These rumors were never confirmed, and no evidence ever surfaced. But as often happens when a celebrity admits to a serious issue, people began to fill in the blanks. Some online forums speculated that Kirk's addiction was a cover for a more scandalous past, from secret addiction to public redemption. But coming up next, a preacher who got caught with a prostitute, not once, but twice. Jimmy Swaggart was once the face of American televangelism. With his booming voice, fiery sermons, and powerful gospel music, he built an empire that reached millions of homes across the world. In the 1980s, he was one of the most recognizable religious figures in the U.S., rivaling even Billy Graham in popularity. His sermons weren't just spiritual, they were emotional performances, broadcasted on national television, drawing in the faithful with promises of salvation and warnings about sin. But ironically, it was the very sin he preached so passionately against that brought about his dramatic downfall. In 1988, the world was stunned when reports surfaced that Jimmy Swaggart had been caught with a sex worker in Louisiana. The news hit like a thunderbolt, especially since Swaggart had spent much of his public life condemning other pastors and celebrities for their immoral behavior. Just a few years earlier, he had publicly attacked fellow televangelist Marvin Gorman over similar allegations, helping to end Gorman's career. But now, it was Swaggart in the spotlight, for all the wrong reasons. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Swaggart tearfully confessed on live television, famously saying, "I have sinned against you, my Lord." It was one of the most dramatic and emotional moments in religious broadcasting history. He wept on stage, begged for forgiveness, and temporarily stepped down from his ministry. But for many, the apology wasn't enough. The Assemblies of God, the denomination he was affiliated with, gave him a chance to go through a disciplinary process and be restored over time. Swaggart refused and instead chose to return to preaching quickly, against their recommendation. As a result, he was defrocked, officially stripped of his ministerial credentials. The scandal not only exposed Swaggart's personal failings, but also cracked open a larger conversation about hypocrisy in religious leadership. Here was a man who thundered from the pulpit about purity and holiness while secretly engaging in the very behavior he condemned. The press had a field day. Comedians mocked him. Church leaders distanced themselves. And even loyal viewers began to ask, how could someone who claimed to speak for God fall so far? But the story didn't end there. In 1991, just 3 years after his public downfall, Swaggart was caught again, this time by police in California with another sex worker. And this time, there were no tearful apologies on live TV. Instead, when asked about the incident, Swaggart reportedly told his congregation, "The Lord told me, it's flat none of your business." That response shocked many even more than the scandal itself. It signaled a shift. Swaggart was no longer trying to repent publicly. He was leaning into defiance, continuing his ministry without the accountability he once claimed to uphold. You think that was bad? Our next gospel singer lost everything: awards, record deals, and fans over one bombshell pregnancy. Michael English was once the golden boy of contemporary Christian music, CCM. With his powerful voice, heartfelt lyrics, and clean-cut image, he rose to fame in the early 1990s as the kind of artist parents approved of and fans adored. He had it all: a Dove Award-winning solo career, successful gospel group roots with the Gaither Vocal Band, and widespread respect within the Christian music industry. But behind the scenes, a scandal was brewing that would not only destroy his career, but also expose the fragile line between faith-based fame and personal failure. In 1994, at the very peak of his career, Michael English shocked the Christian music world by admitting to an extramarital affair with Mara Beth Jordan, a singer from the gospel group First Call. The affair might have remained private, but there was one major development that made it impossible to hide. Mara Beth became pregnant. The news hit like a bombshell. Both English and Jordan were married to other people at the time. And within days of the story breaking, the consequences came fast and hard. English publicly confessed to the affair and immediately stepped away from his career. He returned all 6 Dove Awards he had just won that year, including Artist of the Year, and voluntarily walked away from his record deal with Warner Alliance. Christian radio stations pulled his songs from rotation. Concert bookings vanished. And just like that, a career that had been carefully built over a decade was gone almost overnight. The scandal wasn't just about the affair, it was about the betrayal of trust. English had built his platform on being a Christian role model, someone who represented not just talent, but moral integrity. The Christian music industry had always held its stars to a higher standard, and Michael English's downfall was seen as a moral collapse. For many fans, it felt personal. He had sung about Jesus, about purity, about commitment, and now he was at the center of a tabloid-style scandal. That affair ended a career, but the next one? It nearly ended a marriage and a ministry, and includes double cheating. Ty Tribbett was hailed as the electrifying future sound of urban gospel, blending choir shouts with rock guitar riffs and hip-hop swagger. On stage, he looked unstoppable, yet in 2009, his world imploded when he admitted he had been having an affair with a singer from his own choir, Greater Anointing. In interviews, he later explained the relationship began innocently. He and his wife Shantae were counseling the woman, but the friendship got out of control and slid into full-blown secrecy. When the truth surfaced, the gospel press pounced. Tribbett's image of high-energy holiness now clashed with a painfully human failure, and the fallout drove him into a mental tailspin so dark he has said he literally contemplated suicide. The scandal didn't stop with his confession. Hurt and humiliated, Shantae sought solace elsewhere and ended up in her own affair, this time with Christian rapper Da Truth. The double infidelity pushed the couple to the brink of divorce, shattering the ministry they had built together and sending shockwaves through gospel circles already struggling with repeated leadership scandals. From that lowest point, Tribbett chose a path surprisingly few public ministers attempt: brutal transparency. He stepped away from the spotlight, entered counseling, and began what he later called spiritual rehab. The couple imposed boundaries: no tours, no recording sessions, until they could rebuild trust at home. During that season, he says he confronted his own ego, recognizing how success had insulated him from accountability. In Dhruv Rathi terms, it's the classic bubble of celebrity. The bigger the platform, the fewer the people who can tell you stop. Tribbett finally listened when the bubble burst. Reconciliation did not happen overnight. It took nearly 2 years of therapy, public silence, and private rebuilding before the pair announced they were staying together. By 2013, they co-founded Live Church Orlando, presenting themselves as proof that grace works, but also telling congregants that grace without accountability is just cheap talk. Critics call it a convenient relaunch. Supporters see it as lived theology. Either way, Tribbett's honesty about contemplating suicide, about his wife's matching betrayal, and about the painstaking repairs has given his music a rawness absent from earlier hits. What makes the saga especially instructive is the way it exposes contradictions inside the gospel industry itself. Artists are marketed as moral exemplars, yet the touring grind and adoring crowds create exactly the temptations Scripture warns about. When a star stumbles, fans demand instant contrition, yet also want flawless leaders. Tribbett's story shows what happens when that impossible image collides with reality. Fame can amplify a fall, but it can also magnify a comeback if the artist embraces full disclosure instead of spin. That was heavy. But now we're heading to Nigeria, where one gospel star confessed, vanished, and left a continent in shock. Sammy Okposo was Nigeria's globe-trotting praise machine. Grammy-worthy voice, sold-out stadium concerts, even a soundtrack cameo in Tyler Perry's Diary of a Mad Black Woman. But on 24 January 2022, the man whose signature hit Welu Welu urged believers to dance before God typed a bombshell Instagram note that stopped the music. "I am not proud of my actions. I cheated on my wife." In one stroke, he admitted flying to the United States the previous year, meeting a woman known online as African Doll, sleeping with her, and then trying to move on until she went public, pregnant, and angry that he had allegedly urged an abortion. Within hours, gospel Twitter melted. Memes of a microphone dropping beside a wedding ring trended across West Africa. Okposo's apology was startlingly specific. He named the sin, begged forgiveness from wife Ozioma, fans, and the body of Christ, and announced he had suspended himself from all ministry work to seek restoration. Nigerian newspapers splashed the confession on their front pages, while global blogs that rarely cover African gospel framed it as yet another preacher-musician caught preaching one thing and practicing another. For a man who often scolded congregations about holiness, the hypocrisy stung. Within 24 hours, he switched his Instagram to private, took down the apology, and vanished from social media, as if trying to mute the echo chamber he had just activated. Yet the story kept snowballing. African Doll went on YouTube interviews describing their hotel rendezvous, promising to keep the baby because I don't believe in abortion, and accusing the singer of ghosting her once she missed her period. Nigerian talk shows debated whether public confessions do more harm than quiet repentance. Pastors praised his transparency, while critics called it crisis PR only because the woman spoke first. Okposo's bookings, weddings, crusades, even a planned European tour were canceled by organizers wary of backlash from conservative congregations. Sponsors paused brand deals. Radio rotations plummeted. And in the middle of the chaos, his 2021 single, Too Good to Be True, unintentionally became ironic background music for TikToks mocking fallen gospel stars. Beyond the tabloid buzz, the saga exposed a deeper churn inside African Pentecostal culture. Mega ministries love celebrity testimonies, but when the flesh shows, accountability structures are often improvised. Okposo wasn't excommunicated by a denomination. He suspended himself, essentially policing his own punishment, a privilege rarely granted to ordinary church members. If you found this video shocking or eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden truths behind famous faces.
Developing story that we're following now, Bishop T.D. Jakes, the leader of Dallas megachurch, the Potter's House, announced today that he will be stepping down.
Not every preacher practices what they preach. Behind some pulpits, darkness hides in plain sight, masked by charisma, power, and the promise of salvation. From assaults to theft, here are 15 of the most evil black pastors whose actions shocked their congregations and stained their legacies. 1. Reverend James Cleveland.
Let me ask you this. Did Reverend James Cleveland really die from AIDS? Whoa.
James Cleveland earned the nickname King of Gospel for good reason. He created the Gospel Music Workshop of America, which became a huge deal in gospel music circles. This wasn't just some small church program either. It grew into a massive organization that brought together gospel singers from all over the country. Cleveland had this amazing ability to spot talent and help people develop their musical gifts. His workshops became the place where gospel singers went to learn their craft and network with other musicians. But behind all that success, Cleveland kept his personal life pretty quiet. Maybe too quiet. People in the gospel world whispered about him sometimes, but nobody really knew what was going on behind closed doors. Cleveland was all business when it came to his public image, focusing on music and ministry rather than talking about his private affairs. After Cleveland died in 1991, things got messy real quick. Christopher Harris, who Cleveland had taken in as a foster son, came forward with some serious accusations. Harris claimed that Cleveland had sexually abused him over several years and even passed along HIV. The whole thing became a legal nightmare that dragged Cleveland's name through the mud. Harris said Cleveland used his position of authority and trust to manipulate him, taking advantage of a vulnerable young man who looked up to him. The lawsuit brought up all sorts of uncomfortable questions about Cleveland's personal life. People started talking about his sexuality in ways they never had before. Some folks defended him fiercely, saying the accusations were lies meant to destroy a good man's reputation. Others weren't so sure, especially when more details came out during the legal proceedings. Cleveland's family and supporters fought back hard, but the damage was done. The case got settled out of court for an amount nobody talks about publicly. That settlement meant we never got to hear all the evidence, so people were left to make up their own minds about what really happened. The Gospel Music Workshop of America kept going, but Cleveland's name was forever linked to the scandal. 2. Reverend Clarence LaVaughn. Franklin.
If you anticipate failure, believe me, you're going to fail.
Reverend Franklin was Aretha Franklin's dad, and he was pretty famous in his own right. He led Detroit's New Bethel Baptist Church and got involved in civil rights work alongside folks like Martin Luther King Jr. Franklin was known for his powerful preaching style and his ability to draw huge crowds to his church. He recorded dozens of sermons that sold well across the country, making him one of the most recognizable voices in Black Christianity. But Franklin had some serious issues when it came to women. People talked about his affairs all the time, and not quietly either. Franklin seemed to think his position as a pastor gave him special privileges when it came to relationships. Church members would whisper about different women coming and going from his life, but nobody felt comfortable challenging him directly. The worst rumor involved a 12-year-old girl from his church. Supposedly, he got her pregnant, and she had his baby. That's the kind of story that makes your stomach turn, whether it's true or not. The girl in question never came forward publicly, but the rumors persisted for years. Some people said Franklin paid money to keep the story quiet, while others claimed it was all made up by his enemies. Later on, folks started saying Franklin threw wild parties at his Detroit mansion. These weren't church socials either. People described them as pretty raunchy affairs with drinking, drugs, and all sorts of inappropriate behavior. Some even claimed Aretha got hurt at one of these parties when she was just a kid, though she never talked about it publicly. The parties apparently happened regularly, and Franklin didn't seem to care who knew about them. Franklin also had problems with the government about not paying his taxes. The IRS came after him for owing thousands of dollars in back taxes over several years. He got arrested on drug charges too, though those charges got dropped later. Some people thought the drug arrest was connected to those wild parties at his house, but nothing was ever proven in court. Franklin's story ended badly. In June 1979, someone shot him twice at his Detroit home during what looked like a robbery attempt. The attackers never got caught, and some people wondered if Franklin had made enemies who wanted him dead. Maybe it was just a random crime, or maybe someone had a grudge against him for his behavior over the years. Franklin spent the next 5 years in a coma before dying on July 27, 1984. He was 69 years old. Aretha never talked much about her father's scandals, choosing to focus on his positive contributions to civil rights and gospel music instead. 3. Bishop Eddie Long.
Because some days I wake up like a conqueror, and some days I wake up fearless, and then some days.
Eddie Long knew how to grow a church, and he proved it big time with New Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Georgia. When he took over, the place had maybe 300 members on a good Sunday. Under his leadership, that number exploded to over 25,000 people. The church complex grew too, becoming this massive campus with multiple buildings, a bookstore, a restaurant, and even its own television studio. Long was doing something right when it came to attracting people to church. Long preached what's called the prosperity gospel, telling people that God wanted them to be wealthy and successful. He dressed the part too, always wearing expensive suits and driving luxury cars. His personal mansion was worth millions, and he lived like a celebrity rather than a traditional pastor. Some people loved this message because it gave them hope for a better life. Others thought it was pretty far from what Jesus actually taught. But in 2010, Long's world came crashing down when 4 young men came forward with identical stories. They claimed Long used his position to pressure them into sexual relationships over several years. According to their lawsuits, Long would single out young men in his congregation, shower them with attention and gifts, and then gradually manipulate them into inappropriate relationships. The accusers said Long gave them expensive jewelry, cars, and cash. He took them on fancy trips to other cities and countries, always making sure they stayed in nice hotels and ate at expensive restaurants. The church apparently paid for all of this, which meant congregation members were unknowingly funding Long's alleged grooming activities. The young men described feeling trapped because Long had so much power in their community. Long's congregation was not having it when these stories came out. Thousands of members left the church within months, and they weren't quiet about why they were leaving. People who had donated money and time to build up New Birth felt betrayed and angry. Less people meant less money coming in, and Long started panicking as his empire began to crumble. Long got up in front of his remaining congregation and denied everything passionately. He said he had spent his whole life helping people and couldn't believe anyone would make up such horrible lies about him. He claimed the accusations were attacks from Satan designed to destroy his ministry. Some of his loyal supporters believed him and stayed, but many others had heard enough. Despite all his public denials, Long settled those lawsuits in 2011. Nobody knows exactly how much money changed hands, but it was reportedly several $1 million divided among the 4 accusers. The settlement agreements included confidentiality clauses, so we never got to hear more details about what allegedly happened. 4. Pastor Keon Henderson.
Hush, hush. Silence in the name of Jesus.
Sometimes it's the little things that cause big problems in the social media age. In 2024, a video of Pastor Keon Henderson went viral, and not in a good way. During a church service at the Lighthouse Church, Henderson was preaching when a woman in the congregation started crying loudly. Instead of showing compassion or understanding, Henderson snapped his fingers at her and told her to hush in front of everyone. The whole thing was caught on camera and posted online within hours. The video spread like wildfire across social media platforms, with people sharing it and adding their own commentary. Some folks were absolutely outraged by Henderson's behavior, saying it was incredibly insensitive to treat a distressed church member that way. Others defended him, arguing that he was just trying to maintain order during the service. Henderson leads the Lighthouse Church in Houston, which has grown into a pretty successful ministry. He's married to reality TV star Shawnee O'Neal, which gives him additional visibility beyond just church circles. The couple often appears together at public events and on social media, presenting themselves as a power couple in the Christian community. The viral video caused major problems for Henderson's reputation. People started digging into his background and questioning his pastoral approach. Some former church members came forward to share their own stories about Henderson's leadership style, though none were as dramatic as the finger-snapping incident. Henderson realized pretty quickly that he had messed up big time. The negative attention was growing by the day, and even people who didn't usually pay attention to church drama were talking about the video. He made a public apology to the woman during a later service, saying he had no idea his actions would hurt her so much. He told his whole congregation he was sorry for causing her trouble and embarrassment. The woman accepted his apology publicly, which helped calm things down somewhat. But the damage was done in terms of Henderson's broader reputation. The video became a perfect example of how modern technology can turn a small moment of poor judgment into a major scandal that follows you forever. 5. Pastor David E. Wilson.
Deliver us in the way of life, and your name shall be praised forever and ever. Amen.
Pastor David Wilson's scandal was the kind that makes you want to hide under a rock and never come out. In October 2019, a sexually explicit video started making rounds on the internet that allegedly showed Wilson engaged in intimate acts. People said the man in the video looked exactly like Wilson, who led Bible Way Ministries and World Outreach in Texas, and the resemblance was pretty convincing. Wilson had built a solid reputation in his community over many years of ministry. His church wasn't huge, but it was respected, and Wilson was known as a family man who preached traditional values. He often spoke about the importance of moral behavior and staying faithful to your spouse. That made the video scandal even more shocking to people who knew him. The video spread rapidly through social media and text messages, especially in the Houston area where Wilson's church was located. Church members were getting sent the video by friends and family members, creating an incredibly awkward situation for everyone involved. Some people were watching it out of curiosity, while others refused to look but heard about it anyway. Wilson chose to stay completely silent about the whole situation, which probably drove people even crazier. He didn't confirm it was him in the video, but he didn't deny it either. His church issued no statements, and Wilson himself avoided all media contact. Maybe he figured any response would just make things worse and draw more attention to the scandal. The internet had a field day with Wilson's silence. Memes started popping up making jokes about the situation, and people began creating their own theories about what really happened. Some folks put on their detective hats and tried to analyze the video to prove it wasn't really Wilson. They pointed to differences in body type, facial features, and other details that might indicate it was someone else entirely. Others weren't buying the mistaken identity theory and made jokes about pastors practicing what they preach, just not the right things. The whole situation became a source of entertainment for people who love church drama, while Wilson's actual congregation was left dealing with the embarrassment and uncertainty. Sixth, Pastor Jamal Bryant.
Through my own life's experiences, I think God was positioning me for this hour to lead a church.
Jamal Bryant has managed to stay relevant in the church world for years, even landing the prestigious position of taking over Eddie Long's role at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church after Long died. Bryant is young, charismatic, and knows how to work a crowd. He's also pretty savvy about social media and staying in the public eye, which has helped his career but also exposed his personal problems. Bryant's first marriage to Giselle Bryant fell apart in a very public way, and he didn't try to hide why. Bryant admitted he had been unfaithful multiple times during their marriage, and that's ultimately what killed their relationship. The divorce proceedings were messy and got covered in the media, especially since Giselle later became a star on the reality show Real Housewives of Potomac. Giselle didn't stay quiet about their problems either. She talked openly about Bryant's infidelity on her reality show and in interviews, giving details about how his cheating affected their family. She described feeling humiliated and betrayed, especially since Bryant was supposed to be a moral leader in their community. Their 3 daughters were also affected by all the public drama surrounding their parents' divorce. After the divorce, more drama followed Bryant around like a dark cloud. A woman named Latoya Shanti Odom filed a paternity suit against Bryant, claiming he was the father of her young son. Odom said she and Bryant had an affair while he was still married to Giselle, and she wanted him to take responsibility for their child both financially and personally. The paternity case became another public embarrassment for Bryant. Court documents and legal proceedings were covered by blogs and gossip websites, keeping Bryant's personal life in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Eventually, DNA tests confirmed that Bryant was indeed the father of Odom's son, forcing him to acknowledge another child born from his extramarital affairs. Despite all the personal scandals, Bryant has kept his career going strong. He's still preaching to packed churches, writing books, and appearing on television shows. Some people can separate his personal mistakes from his ministry work, while others find it harder to take spiritual advice from someone whose own life seems so messy. Bryant has acknowledged his past mistakes and says he's learned from them, but new controversies keep popping up to challenge his credibility. 7. Pastor Creflo Dollar.
What's your name? Is that your real name? Do you have your daddy's name? When can I meet your daddy? Is your dad and mama together? How do you act when you get mad?
Creflo Dollar made his name and fortune in the prosperity gospel movement, building a ministry that tells people God wants them to be wealthy and successful. Dollar practices what he preaches when it comes to living large. He's got multiple mansions, expensive cars, and all the trappings of serious wealth. His World Changers Church International in Georgia attracts thousands of members who contribute millions of dollars annually to support Dollar's ministry and lifestyle. But Dollar really stepped in it in 2015 when he launched a campaign to raise $60 million for a new private jet. Not just any jet either. He wanted a Gulfstream G650, which is basically the Rolls-Royce of private aircraft. Dollar told his followers that he needed this specific plane to spread the gospel around the world more efficiently. He said commercial flights were too restrictive and that having his own jet would allow him to reach more people with God's message. Dollar's church created a whole website dedicated to the jet fundraising campaign. They broke down the $60 million price tag and asked supporters to donate whatever they could toward the purchase. The campaign materials explained that the jet would be used for ministry purposes and would ultimately benefit the entire Christian community by allowing Dollar to travel more frequently to preach. The backlash was swift and brutal. People couldn't believe a pastor was asking for that kind of money for a private jet while many of his followers struggled financially. Critics pointed out that $60 million could feed a lot of hungry people or provide housing for the homeless. The story got picked up by major news outlets, and Dollar became a national laughingstock almost overnight. Dollar quickly shut down the public campaign, probably realizing how bad it looked and how much damage it was doing to his reputation. He issued a statement saying the campaign had been misunderstood and that he wasn't personally asking anyone for money. But the damage was already done. People had seen his true priorities and they weren't impressed. But here's the kicker that really made people angry. Even after canceling the public campaign, Dollar's property holding company reportedly bought not one, but two used jets anyway, a Gulfstream G4 and a Learjet 60. So much for learning his lesson about optics. Dollar apparently found other ways to get his private aircraft without asking his congregation directly. 8. Bishop Thomas Dexter, Jakes.
Dallas megachurch pastor T.D. Jakes says he needed emergency surgery after he fell ill during his sermon last weekend.
T.D. Jakes is probably one of the most famous pastors in America and certainly one of the most successful. His Potter's House Church in Dallas draws thousands of people every Sunday, and his sermons are broadcast around the world. Jakes has written multiple best-selling books, produced movies, and built a media empire that generates millions of dollars annually. He's definitely more than just a pastor. He's a full-blown celebrity and businessman. But some people have serious questions about how Jakes lives compared to how he preaches. Critics point to his expensive lifestyle and wonder if it matches up with traditional Christian values about humility and helping the poor. Jakes owns multiple large homes, drives luxury cars, and clearly enjoys the finer things in life. His suits alone probably cost more than some people make in a month. Jakes' mansion in Dallas is reportedly worth several $1 million and includes all sorts of luxury amenities. He's got expensive art on the walls, high-end furniture throughout, and grounds that require a full-time staff to maintain. Some folks think that's hypocritical for someone who's supposed to be focused on spiritual matters rather than material wealth. The criticism gets stronger when people look at Jakes' congregation, which includes many working-class families who struggle financially. These are people who donate money to support the ministry while living paycheck to paycheck themselves. Seeing their pastor live in such luxury while they worry about paying rent creates some uncomfortable questions about where their donations are really going. 9. Dietrich Haddon.
I believe in if God is giving you to do something, you don't worry about people's opinions, you just go out there and do it.
Dietrich Haddon was known for his gospel music long before he became known for his messy personal life. He had a successful recording career and was respected in gospel music circles for his talent and creativity. Haddon also pastored a church and seemed to have his life together professionally, even if things were falling apart behind the scenes. His first marriage to Demita Haddon started out looking pretty solid from the outside. They seemed like a power couple in the gospel world, both involved in music and ministry. But things started going wrong, and instead of handling their problems privately, the whole situation exploded into public drama that entertained and shocked people for months. Haddon accused Demita of cheating on him with Isaac Carree, another well-known gospel singer. He didn't just keep this private either. He aired all their dirty laundry in public through interviews, social media posts, and even during church services. Haddon claimed Carree had broken up his home and destroyed his marriage, painting himself as the innocent victim of betrayal. But here's where Haddon's story gets really messy and hypocritical. While he was running around accusing his wife and Isaac Carree of cheating, he was doing exactly the same thing himself. Haddon had been having an affair with a woman named Dominique, and she got pregnant with his child while he was still married to Demita. Talk about throwing stones in a glass house. When the truth about Haddon's own affair came out, it completely changed how people saw the situation. Suddenly, he wasn't the innocent victim anymore. He was just another cheating husband trying to make his wife look bad while hiding his own guilt. The fact that he had gotten another woman pregnant while married made everything even worse. Haddon eventually married Dominique, the woman he had been cheating with, but the damage to his reputation was already done. He tried to apologize for the pain he'd caused and take responsibility for his actions, but many people had already made up their minds about his character. His music career survived the scandal, but his credibility as a spiritual leader took a serious hit that he's still trying to recover from years later. 10. Henry Lyons.
Gone are the days where I need all that. He said, God, burn off some stuff.
Henry Lyons had the nickname Deacon because he seemed so devoted to church life and Christian values. People who knew him described a man who spent all his free time at church talking to members about their problems and raising money for various projects and improvements. He had a reputation for being completely trustworthy with finances and deeply committed to serving his community through religious work. When Lyons became president of the National Baptist Convention USA in 1994, nobody was surprised by the choice. The NBC is absolutely huge. We're talking about 10 million members and the largest black Christian denomination in America. Being president of an organization that size comes with tremendous responsibility and influence over millions of people's spiritual lives. Lyons seemed perfect for the job based on his background and reputation. He had served faithfully in local church leadership for years and had proven himself capable of managing complex projects and budgets. The NBC presidency was seen as the natural next step for someone with his skills and dedication to Christian service. But in 1998, just 4 years after taking over the NBC, federal prosecutors dropped a bombshell that shocked the entire Christian community. They indicted Lyons on multiple serious charges, including fraud, extortion, money laundering, conspiracy, and tax evasion. Basically, they accused him of systematically stealing from the very organization he was supposed to protect and serve. The indictment revealed an elaborate scheme where Lyons allegedly used his position to divert NBC funds into personal accounts and fake companies he controlled. Prosecutors claimed he had stolen more than $4 million over several years, using the money to buy luxury items, take expensive vacations, and maintain a lifestyle far beyond what his legitimate salary could support. Even more shocking were allegations that Lyons had been involved with multiple women despite being married, and that he had used NBC money to support these relationships. One woman, Bernice Edwards, was reportedly given access to NBC credit cards and bank accounts, allowing her to spend church money on personal expenses while having an affair with Lyons. Lyons tried to fight back against the charges, hiring expensive lawyers and claiming the whole thing was racially motivated persecution. He suggested that white prosecutors were targeting him because they couldn't stand to see a successful black religious leader. Lyons pleaded not guilty to all charges and probably hoped his reputation in the community would help him beat the case. But the evidence against Lyons was overwhelming. Bank records, credit card statements, and financial documents clearly showed money flowing from NBC accounts into Lyons' personal use. Witnesses testified about his lavish spending and inappropriate relationships, painting a picture of someone who had completely betrayed the trust placed in him. In 1999, a federal court sentenced Lyons to 5.5 years in prison for his crimes. The man who had spent all his time at church ended up spending the next several years behind bars instead. The NBC had to deal with the massive embarrassment of having their president revealed as a common criminal who had stolen millions from their organization. 11th, Pastor Carlton Pearson.
Fourth generation classical Pentecostal preacher, just like I was raised, same denomination. Church of God in Christ.
Carlton Pearson used to be one of the most respected preachers in America. He was the founder of Higher Dimensions Evangelistic Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and had thousands of loyal followers. Everything seemed perfect until one sermon flipped his whole world upside down. In that message, Pearson boldly declared that nobody, not even non-Christians, was going to hell. He said God's love was too great to condemn people eternally. To some, it sounded beautiful and compassionate. But to church leaders and his fellow pastors, it was nothing short of heresy. By 2004, the Joint College of African American Pentecostal Bishops officially labeled him a heretic. That's when his ministry began to collapse. His church members scattered, his influence faded, and eventually he had to step down. The fall was so dramatic that Netflix even made a movie about him called Come Sunday. It shows his struggles, his defiance, and the cost of standing against tradition. Pearson's critics said he brought his own version of hell on himself. But in truth, he also forced people to talk about one of the most uncomfortable topics in Christianity. 12th, Pastor John Gray.
So now I'm trying to be a husband and a father and a leader, and I didn't see any of those up close. So how can you be what you've never seen?
If charisma was a spiritual gift, John Gray had it in spades. He led Relentless Church in South Carolina and even popped up on television, quickly becoming a familiar face. But in 2018, that shining image started to crack. Rumors spread that Gray was having affairs, and instead of denying it, he got up in front of his entire church during a live service and admitted to emotional unfaithfulness. He asked his congregation and his wife for forgiveness. To make things even more dramatic, he then surprised his wife with a $200,000 Lamborghini. The video of the gift went viral, but instead of winning him sympathy, it only brought more criticism. People accused him of trying to buy his wife's forgiveness and even questioned whether he used church money to pay for the car. Gray insisted it was his own money, but the damage was done. While he still pastors, many people look at him differently. If Pearson's downfall started with words, Gray's drama began with actions. 13. Bishop Daniel Obenem.
Kenneth Japan has defended his recent attacks on founder of International Gospel Church, Bishop Daniel Obenem.
Now, if you thought scandals in the pulpit couldn't get wilder, meet Bishop Daniel Obenem of Ghana's International God's Way Church. In 2016, he turned discipline into a public spectacle. During a live church service, Obenem dragged out two teenagers, accused them of having premarital relations that led to pregnancy, and then flogged them in front of the whole congregation. To make matters worse, the beating was broadcast on television for the entire nation to see. Outrage followed immediately. The Minister of Gender, Children, and Social Protection stepped in and had him arrested. But Obenem's loyal supporters weren't having it. They swarmed the police station demanding his release and defending him like their lives depended on it. The scandal revealed just how extreme the loyalty of some church members could be. Obenem had already been known for his dramatic antics, but this time he had crossed a line the world couldn't ignore. 14. Pastor Lamore Whitehead.
Among the allegations against Lamore Whitehead, that he scammed a parishioner out of $90,000.
Pastor Lamore Whitehead of Brooklyn's Leaders of Tomorrow. International Churches wasn't known for being modest. His wardrobe looked more like a rapper's than a preacher's. Designer suits, flashy jewelry, and watches worth millions. But in July 2022, his flashy lifestyle turned into front-page news when masked gunmen stormed his church mid-service and stole over $1 million jewelry from him and his wife. The robbery was live-streamed and quickly went viral. Instead of sympathy, the public mostly mocked him. People asked why a pastor was draped in ice while preaching about God. Things only got worse in June 2024, when he was convicted of fraud for stealing $90,000 from a follower and spending it on luxury items. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison. From calling himself the Bishop of the Hood to ending up behind bars, Whitehead's story is a cautionary tale of style over substance. 15. Pastor Tony Smith.
God was talking to his people. The very book we read show you that the book is not to everybody. He was talking to his people.
If there's one pastor who doesn't believe in filters, it's Tony Smith of Atlanta-based Tony Smith Ministries. His sermons are blunt, raw, and often offensive. He has openly bashed the LGBTQ+ community, mocked other denominations, and even referred to women as Jezebels during one infamous sermon that went viral on YouTube. Supporters defend him, saying he's simply telling it like it is. But critics argue that his words fuel hate and division. His comments have sparked outrage, online backlash, and even protests outside his church. Some church leaders have publicly condemned him, but Smith refuses to back down. To him, God's truth doesn't need to be softened for anyone. He believes the Bible isn't supposed to be politically correct, and he has built his whole reputation on being unapologetic. Whether people see him as bold or just plain offensive, one thing is clear. He thrives on controversy and shows no signs of slowing down.